The first thing we're going to do is check out our tip that there are more people getting rabies shots for their dogs than are actually getting licenses for their dogs, resulting in lost revenue for the city. And if you look at the two tables we have, the dog license data and the rabies vaccine records, you kind of get a hint that that's the case right off the bat, in that there are 594 rabies vaccine records compared to only 429 dog license records. But that's not the best indicator, because some of these records involve just a person treating or registering one dog, for example here and here. But other records involve one person treating or registering two or more dogs, for example here and here. Here's someone with 3 dogs who were vaccinated. So what we really need is a way to add up the values in this column and also add up the values in this column in the rabies vaccine records and compare the two totals to see if there in fact are more dogs with rabies shots than there are dogs with licenses. So what we're going to do is a procedure that's analogous to the subtotaling procedure in Microsoft Excel. And it works like this. You start with by creating a query. This is something we'll be doing a lot of. And to do that, you click this Create tab next to the Home tab and choose Query Design over here on the right. Okay. And the first thing Access does is it opens up this little dialog box that's basically asking you which of the data sets you have in your database do you want to deal with. So we want to look at 2. We want to look at the dog license data table and the rabies vaccine records table. So all I do is just highlight the one that I want and double click on it, and the table pops up there in the back. And do the same with the rabies vaccine records. Double click and they're in the back. So I've got the 2 data sets that I want to work with open. I'm going to click Close to get rid of this window. And now down here is this area where I can tell Access to do things with the data that's in these 2 tables. And I'm just going to hover my mouse on the border between the 2 screens here and click and drag up a little bit to give myself a little room to work. There we go. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to grab let's start with the record that seems to have more cases. That would be the rabies vaccines. I'm going to grab that, highlight it, click the left mouse button, and drag it over here to the top of this first column. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the license underbar dogs field. That's the number of dogs that have licenses. Click and drag it to the top of this column. Alright, so what we're telling Access now is we want to do something with these 2 columns, these 2 variables from each of these 2 data sets. What we want to do is we want to add them up. Remember, we're looking for the number of dogs that fit each category. In order to do that, we're going to come over here, make sure you're on this Design tab, and look for this Totals button. Look for the big Greek E there, and click that, and watch what happens down here when I do. Okay, I click it, and it's going to add a row right there. It added a Totals row, and the default is this group by procedure. You'll learn in a little bit what you do with that. But for now, I want to change that group by. I just clicked on it. And when you click on it, this little menu pops up, and I want to change it to Sum. See there? And do the same over here. Sum. Now what that's going to do is we're telling Access we want to add up the values in the dogs treated column, and also add up the values in the licensed dogs column. So again, we're doing something very similar to subtotaling in Microsoft Excel. What's cool here is we're doing it simultaneously with 2 different data sets. If you were doing this in Excel, you'd have to do one subtotal over here and another subtotal over here. Access gives you the flexibility to do them both at the same time. Alright, so I've got that set up to run this query, to tell Access to actually do this. I've got to find this big red exclamation point. Make sure you're looking on the Design tab up here. And look for the big red exclamation point and just click it. And here's what happens. Here we go. So now we have a total for the number of dogs. Let me stretch this out a little bit so I won't get myself confused. There we go. We have a total for the number of dogs treated, 372,372. That's the number treated for rabies. And we also have a total for the number of dogs that have licenses, 327,888. So a good many fewer licensed dogs than dogs treated for rabies. So it looks like our tip is true. There are, in fact, more dogs in the city who are getting treated for rabies than who are licensed, which suggests that the people who have those dogs, unlicensed dogs, are dodging their responsibility to pay the fee. All right, so far so good. Let's save this query. To do that, I'm going to click on this X over here, and when I do, Access asks me if I want to save this query that I've made. I'm going to click yes, and we can give the query any name we want, but I've found it's helpful to give them steps so that later on when you're reviewing what you've done here, you know the order in which you did things. So I'm going to call this step 1 and then just do a colon, and then let's call it let's see, totals for treated and licensed dogs, like that. Okay, you click OK. There we go, and notice it popped up over here, and Access puts the query with the tables that it's associated with. So there's the query we just did is over here under dog license data. It's also here under rabies vaccine records because the query involves both of these data sets. There's nothing here under city employees yet because we didn't involve that table in this particular query. Okay, so far so good. Let's see what we might do next with this data.